You spend your nights scrolling through dating apps, refreshing social media, and wondering why you feel empty despite having more options than any generation in history. But what if the problem isn't your technique or your profile pictures, but your entire approach to pleasure and relationships? 23 centuries ago, the Greek philosopher Epicurus figured out why most men suffer in their romantic lives and developed a system for choosing selective pleasure over desperate love. That made him magnetic to both men and women who flocked to his legendary garden, seeking the secret to genuine happiness. Today you're going to discover why your desperation is destroying your chances, and how ancient wisdom can transform you into the kind of man who naturally attracts quality people without games, manipulation, or the exhausting pursuit that leaves you more lonely than when you started. Epicurus understood something most modern men have forgotten. True pleasure comes from freedom, not from chasing someone who doesn't want you. In his famous garden, he created a community where people pursued genuine happiness instead of the anxiety-driven pursuits that destroy peace of mind. When you're desperately seeking validation from women, you're actually choosing pain disguised as pleasure. The philosopher taught that we must distinguish between necessary and vain desires. Desperate love falls into the category of vain desires that create more suffering than joy. This is why men who chase women frantically always end up more miserable than when they started. The garden wasn't just a physical place. It was a mindset of selective engagement with the world around you. Epicurus rejected the idea that we need another person to complete us or make us happy. Instead, he advocated for a life where pleasure comes from inner tranquility and meaningful connections, not from the emotional roller coaster of desperate romantic pursuit. When you operate from this place of self-sufficiency, you naturally become more attractive because you're not radiating neediness. Women can sense desperation from miles away, and it repels them faster than anything else you could do. Modern men have been conditioned to believe that romantic conquest equals happiness, but Epicurus would laugh at this delusion. He knew that the most pleasurable life comes from choosing your battles wisely and not letting your peace of mind depend on someone else's approval. This doesn't mean becoming cold or indifferent. It means becoming selective about where you invest your emotional energy. The man who can enjoy his own company and doesn't need constant validation will always have more genuine options than the one who chases every opportunity desperately. Ataraxia is the Greek word for unshakable inner peace, the kind of tranquility that makes you magnetic to others because you're not constantly seeking their approval. Epicurus taught that this state of calm confidence is the foundation of all genuine pleasure in life. When you achieve ataraxia in your relationships, you stop being the guy who checks his phone every 5 minutes waiting for her text back. You become the man who can enjoy a conversation without calculating what it means for your chances with her. This emotional independence is what separates attractive men from desperate ones. Most men live in a constant state of anxiety about their romantic prospects, always wondering if they said the right thing or if she's losing interest. Epicurus would say this anxiety is self-imposed suffering that destroys any chance of genuine connection. When you're emotionally independent, you can actually be present in the moment with someone instead of being trapped in your head about outcomes. This presence is incredibly attractive because most people are so caught up in their own anxieties that they rarely experience someone who is genuinely calm and centered. Women gravitate toward this energy because it feels safe and authentic. The path to ataraxia requires you to stop making your happiness dependent on external validation from romantic partners. This doesn't mean becoming emotionally unavailable. It means developing such a strong relationship with yourself that other people's acceptance becomes a bonus rather than a necessity. When you operate from this place of inner peace, your interactions become more genuine because you're not performing for approval. You can actually get to know someone instead of just trying to impress them with a false version of yourself. Epicurus developed the hedonic calculus as a practical tool for making decisions that lead to genuine happiness rather than momentary satisfaction. This ancient wisdom is exactly what modern men need when facing romantic choices that seem appealing in the moment but destructive in the long run. The calculus asks you to weigh the intensity, duration, and consequences of any pleasure before pursuing it. When you apply this to dating, you start making decisions based on wisdom rather than impulse. That toxic but attractive woman might offer intense short-term pleasure, but the long-term pain isn't worth the temporary high. Most men operate on pure impulse when it comes to relationships. They see an attractive woman and immediately start chasing without considering the real cost of that pursuit. Epicurus would tell you to pause and calculate the true pleasure equation. Will pursuing this person lead to lasting satisfaction, or just temporary excitement followed by drama and pain? The hedonic calculus forces you to think like an investor rather than a gambler. With your emotional energy, smart men invest in relationships that compound their happiness over time, rather than burning their peace of mind for momentary thrills. The beauty of this approach is that it naturally makes you more selective and therefore more attractive. When you're not chasing every opportunity that presents itself, you develop standards and self-respect that others find magnetic. Women notice when a man has options, but chooses carefully, rather than desperately accepting whatever attention comes his way. The selectivity based on long-term thinking rather than short-term impulse is what separates men who build meaningful relationships from those who just collect experiences that leave them emptier than before. Epicurus divided pleasures into two categories that every man needs to understand. Kinetic pleasures are active and intense, but temporary, while katastematic pleasures are stable and lasting. Chasing women falls into the kinetic category. The thrill of pursuit, the excitement of conquest, the rush of validation when she responds to your message. These pleasures burn bright but leave you empty and craving more. Like a drug that requires increasing doses to achieve the same high. The man who builds his happiness on kinetic pleasures becomes addicted to the chase itself, rather than finding genuine fulfillment. Katastematic pleasures are the stable satisfactions that come from inner peace, meaningful friendships, personal growth, and authentic connections. When you focus on building these foundations in your life, you stop needing the constant stimulation of romantic drama to feel alive. This shift changes everything about how you interact with women because you're no longer seeking them to fill a void in your life. Instead of being the guy who needs constant female attention to feel valuable, you become someone who genuinely enjoys companionship without being dependent on it for your sense of worth. The irony is that when you stop chasing kinetic pleasures from women and focus on katastematic fulfillment, you naturally become more attractive to quality partners. Women can sense when a man is complete within himself versus when he's using relationships to escape his own emptiness. The desperate chaser radiates neediness and instability. The self-sufficient man radiates confidence and peace. Epicurus understood that true pleasure comes from not needing external validation to feel complete. And this principle transforms how you approach every interaction with the opposite sex. Epicurus created the tetrapharmakos for essential medicines for human suffering that apply perfectly to modern dating anxiety. The first medicine states that God is not to be feared, which translates to not fearing rejection, because it's not a divine judgment on your worth as a man. Most guys treat rejection like a catastrophic event that defines their value, but Epicurus would say this fear is irrational and self-imposed. When you stop fearing rejection, you can actually connect with people authentically instead of walking on eggshells, trying to avoid disappointing them. This fearlessness is incredibly attractive because most people are trapped by their need for constant approval. The second medicine teaches that death is not to be feared, meaning the end of any relationship isn't something to desperately avoid. When you're not terrified of being alone, you stop clinging to toxic situations just because they're familiar. You can actually evaluate whether a relationship serves your happiness or just feeds your fear of solitude. The third medicine states that good things are easy to achieve. Genuine connection doesn't require complex manipulation tactics or pick-up artist techniques. It happens naturally when two compatible people meet without hidden agendas or desperate neediness clouding the interaction. The fourth medicine declares that bad things are easy to endure. Romantic disappointment won't destroy you if you don't make your entire identity dependent on someone else's acceptance. When you internalize these four medicines, dating becomes much simpler because you're not carrying the weight of existential anxiety into every interaction. You can be curious about someone without needing them to validate your existence, which creates the relaxed confidence that draws quality people into your life. Epicurus believed that friendship was the highest form of human connection because it's based on mutual respect and genuine care rather than possession and desire. Unlike romantic relationships that often involve jealousy, control, and emotional manipulation, true friendship offers consistent pleasure without the drama that destroys inner peace. When you prioritize building strong friendships with both men and women, you create a foundation of social fulfillment that makes you less desperate for romantic validation. This shift in priorities naturally makes you more attractive because you're not treating every woman as a potential solution to your loneliness. Most modern men have weak social circles because they abandon their friendships the moment they get into a relationship or start chasing a woman. Epicurus would see this as backwards thinking that leads to suffering and isolation. When your friendships are strong, you have perspective on romantic situations that prevents you from making desperate decisions based on scarcity. You can evaluate potential partners more clearly because you're not coming from a place of social emptiness where any attention feels like salvation. Quality friendships provide the consistent emotional support that makes you less needy in romantic contexts. The garden that Epicurus created was fundamentally a community of friends who supported each other's pursuit of genuine happiness rather than fleeting pleasures. When you apply this principle to your life, you stop treating women as objects to acquire and start seeing them as potential friends first. This approach eliminates the predatory energy that repels quality women and replaces it with genuine interest in who they are as people. Friendship-based connections naturally evolve into the most satisfying romantic relationships because they're built on mutual respect rather than desperate need. Autarkia is the Greek concept of self-sufficiency that Epicurus considered essential for genuine happiness. It means having everything you need within yourself rather than depending on external sources for your sense of worth. When you achieve autarkia in your personal life, you stop being the guy who needs constant female validation to feel like a complete man. This independence is magnetic because most people are trapped in cycles of neediness and codependency that drain everyone around them. The self-sufficient man offers something rare in modern dating: genuine presence without hidden agendas or desperate attempts to extract value from others. Building autarkia requires developing your own interests, goals, and sources of fulfillment that exist completely independent of romantic success. This might mean pursuing creative projects, building a business, developing physical fitness, or mastering skills that genuinely excite you rather than just trying to impress women. When your life is rich with meaningful activities and personal growth, you naturally become more interesting and attractive because you have substance beyond your desire for female attention. Women can sense when a man has a full life versus when he's using them to fill the emptiness of his existence. The paradox of autarkia is that the less you need others for your happiness, the more others want to be part of your life. When you're genuinely content with your own company and pursuits, you create space for authentic connections rather than desperate attempts to escape loneliness. This self-sufficiency doesn't mean becoming cold or isolated. It means becoming so fulfilled within yourself that you can offer genuine value to others instead of constantly seeking to take from them. Epicurus taught that true pleasure comes from the absence of pain rather than the accumulation of intense experiences, a principle that directly contradicts modern dating culture's obsession with conquest and validation. Today's dating apps and social media have created a culture where men chase endless options and dramatic highs, but Epicurus would recognize this as a recipe for constant suffering. The pleasure principle suggests that a peaceful single life is superior to a chaotic relationship filled with drama and anxiety. When you understand this, you stop participating in the toxic games that define modern dating and start seeking genuine tranquility instead. Modern dating culture teaches men to measure their worth by their ability to attract multiple women simultaneously, but this approach creates the opposite of pleasure according to Epicurean philosophy. The constant comparison, the fear of missing out, the energy spent maintaining multiple conversations with strangers, all of this creates anxiety rather than genuine satisfaction. Epicurus would advise focusing on one meaningful connection at a time or enjoying solitude rather than spreading yourself thin across multiple shallow interactions. Quality over quantity isn't just dating advice. It's a fundamental principle for achieving lasting happiness. The ancient pleasure principle also warns against using external validation as your primary source of satisfaction because it's inherently unstable and unreliable. When your happiness depends on how many matches you get or how quickly someone responds to your messages, you've made your peace of mind hostage to forces beyond your control. True pleasure comes from internal sources that you can cultivate and maintain regardless of external circumstances, which makes you infinitely more attractive than men who are constantly seeking approval from others. Epicurus advocated for minimalism in all areas of life, including relationships. The idea that less complexity leads to more genuine pleasure and satisfaction. Modern men often complicate their romantic lives with elaborate strategies, multiple dating apps, complex texting rules, and exhausting games that drain their energy without producing real results. Epicurean minimalism suggests stripping away all the unnecessary complications and focusing on simple, authentic interactions with people who genuinely interest you. This approach eliminates the mental fatigue that comes from managing multiple fake personas across different platforms and relationships. The minimalist approach to dating means being selective about who deserves your time and energy rather than casting a wide net and hoping something sticks. Instead of swiping endlessly or trying to maintain conversations with dozens of matches, you focus on a few quality connections where genuine compatibility exists. This selectivity naturally makes you more attractive because scarcity creates value when you're not available to everyone. The people who do receive your attention feel special rather than like just another option on your roster. Quality women respect men who have standards and don't desperately pursue every opportunity that presents itself. Relationship minimalism also means communicating directly instead of playing elaborate games designed to create artificial attraction through confusion and manipulation. Epicurus valued honesty and straightforward communication because it eliminates the anxiety that comes from constantly wondering where you stand with someone. When you can express your interest clearly without desperation and accept rejection gracefully without drama, you create the kind of peaceful interactions that lead to genuine connections, rather than toxic entanglements that drain your energy and destroy your peace of mind. Epicurus believed that the philosophical life, one dedicated to wisdom, self-reflection, and the pursuit of genuine understanding, was the most attractive way to exist because it naturally produces the qualities that draw others toward you. When you're committed to personal growth and understanding yourself deeply, you develop the kind of authenticity and confidence that can't be faked or manufactured through pickup techniques. The philosophical man doesn't need to pretend to be interesting because he genuinely is interesting. He's constantly learning, growing, and developing perspectives that make conversations meaningful rather than superficial. This depth is incredibly attractive to quality women who are tired of shallow interactions with men who have nothing to offer beyond surface-level charm. The philosophical approach to life also creates natural abundance mentality because you're focused on becoming the best version of yourself rather than desperately trying to acquire external validation. When your primary relationship is with wisdom and personal development, you stop seeing women as scarce resources to be hoarded and start seeing them as fellow human beings, worthy of genuine connection. This shift eliminates the desperate energy that repels quality partners and replaces it with curious engagement that draws people toward you. Philosophers throughout history have been magnetic not because of their looks or wealth, but because of their depth and authenticity. Living philosophically means taking responsibility for your own happiness and growth instead of expecting others to complete you or solve your problems. The self-ownership is the foundation of all genuine attraction because it demonstrates that you're a complete person who chooses to share your life with others rather than someone who needs others to feel whole. The philosophical life creates the kind of inner richness that makes solitude enjoyable and companionship meaningful. Epicurus understood what modern men have forgotten: that true pleasure comes from wisdom, selectivity, and inner peace rather than desperate pursuit of external validation. The philosopher who chooses his pleasures carefully and builds his happiness on solid foundations will always be more attractive than the man who chases every opportunity with anxious desperation. When you apply these ancient principles to your modern life, you transform from someone who needs others to complete him into someone who genuinely enjoys sharing his already fulfilling existence. This shift changes everything about how you interact with women because you're no longer seeking them to fill a void. You're inviting them to join something beautiful that already exists. The question remains, will you continue living as a slave to your desperate desires, or will you choose the philosophical path that leads to genuine fulfillment and natural attraction? Subscribe to this channel if you're ready to embrace the wisdom that makes you magnetic without the neediness that repels quality people from your life.